is going.
Okay.
American track and field fans, I hope you were able to take off work early on Friday to watch that one. Were you not entertained? Welcome to the post-Florence Diamond League instant reaction show. What a meet. This is Let'sRun.com co-founder Robert Johnson, joined by Jonathan Galt. What a meet. Faith Kipyegon, the greatest women's 1,500-meter runner, has done it. The one thing missing on her resume was the world record. The two-time Olympic champ, 3:49.11. Negative split, 58-second last 400. Are you kidding me? And then to see all of her fellow competitors so pumped for her, taking pictures with her, it was amazing. Tingling is going through my body just recapping it. I jumped out of the screen, John, and started screaming at the television because, well, we'll talk about how she did it later. Men's 5,000, we were so pumped for this. It was pretty damn exciting. 13 different men broke 13 flat. Mo Couture, not my favorite runner, I'm going to admit. He wins it. I don't know what to say about this, John. We'll break it down in great detail, but what a time we live in. Grant Fisher runs 12:56, and I view it as an absolute disaster. Is it time for Fisher to get worried? You texted me and said it is. We'll break that down. Fred Kerley, still on top of the men's 100. Grant Holloway, former podcast guest, wins the 110 hurdles. What else am I missing, John? Just that world record at the end was what?
Yeah. I mean, we could call this Let's Run podcast. I think it should be the Faith Kipyegon Appreciation Hour. I mean, I want to say, first of all, one of the first things, Steve Cram, I thought they did a good job calling this race. They knew that it had to be a fast time. I thought it was confusing. The pacing lights were set for 3:51.15. Where did the hell did they get that number from? It's just weird for the viewers. It's weird for, I mean, I guess Kipyegon knows that's what the thing is, but you would think she would want the world record pace. I don't understand that at all. But the one thing I'm going to say, Steve Cram, he's trying to hype up the moment. Generally, he does a good job of this. And he's saying she was perhaps the greatest 1,500-meter runner in history. No. There was no doubt before this race. Kipyegon was the GOAT. 2 Olympic titles, 2 world titles. This was the cherry on top. Now, this was a super glazed maraschino cherry, probably about 3 pounds. I mean, this was a towering accomplishment. The first woman under the 350 barrier. People are going to be talking about this run decades from now, Robert. You and I, we could tell you John Walker was the first human being to run under 350 in the mile. And I think this accomplishment on the women's side is going to be talked about in a similar vein because she is so much faster than everyone else in history. She took almost a full second off the record. Just a historic night in Florence.
Yeah, I just, when I heard she was going for the record, I guess I didn't make a big deal, but I did post on the message board. I think she's going to get it. And I started the message board thread about 45 minutes before the meet started. I said the world record only has a few hours to live. But then the gun goes off, and I didn't know what the pacing lights were. Midway through the race, they say 3:51.15. And I was like, what? I guess there's a rationale for that. But the old world record was 350.
0.07,
which comes out to be, I've done the math and now I've forgotten it already. Let's see here. That's 61.35 per lap. And they come through 800 in 204 flat. So they're significantly behind it. They said that they're running 351. And I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks. Why are they going for 351? I'm going to have to complain about this later. They get to the bell, and the announcers, at least on the international feed, did a good job. He said, she needs a 60. And I thought, that might be doable. I've seen her close in sub 60 before, but you're going so fast, you're thinking probably not. But then when I know the pace was the 351, and when she got to 1,200 and it popped up 61, I thought, okay, that's the pace that she needs to average. If she could just slam this down, could she do it? And when she got ahead of that light, that's when I jumped off this goddamn desk. I ran over to the TV And I was like, come on, girl, let's go. Like, I wish there was a video of me. I wanted her to do it. And she did it. It was just sensational. I love the celebration. She kind of put her left arm out. It was just perfect for her personality, but show some excitement. She was so pumped. Oh, man.
Oh, I mean, Robert, it was awesome. And you could tell how happy all the other women were for her as well. This is someone who, any women's miler, they know Faith Kipyegon's the GOAT. We heard all the athletes basically say it back in Tokyo when she won the Olympics. That was what cemented it, I think, in the minds of a lot of people. And everyone was congratulating her. Everyone was smiling. They took a big group picture afterwards. There's a lot of happiness. And I think that was for a few reasons. One, she's taken a run at really fast times in the past and come short. Last year, she ran 3:52 twice, both in the World Championship final and at pre-classic. Those weren't world record attempts. But 2021, Monaco, she runs 3:51.07. She was going for a personal best. Then last year, she goes for a personal best and not the world record in Monaco. But come on, that was kind of a world record attempt. It runs 3:50.37. She just missed it by 0.3. So she kept coming close. We know she's been the best. She's dominated this event like few other distance runners have dominated event over the last decade. And then there's the other thing. Look, the world record holder in this event, before her, it was Gonzebe Dibaba. I think there are some questions about her given her association with Jama Arden. Their hotel was raided. They found EPO there. Arden has not served any sort of punishment for that, but people have some questions, I believe, about Dibaba given her association. And then before that, the world record holder, Q Youngsha of China from 1993. I mean, I think everyone knows all of those Chinese women in the 1990s were doping. So it's been a long, long time since someone who most people in the sport believe in has held this world record. And I know Kipyegon, people are going to be suspicious of her as well, but you could tell the respect she's held in from other. The only reason to be suspicious of Kipyegon, I would say, is because she's run so fast. And to me, I don't think that's totally fair. I think most people.
You said
what?
Kipyegon people are going to be suspicious. Who's Kipyegon?
What are you saying, Robert?
I think you misspoke. You said Kipyegon people are going to be suspicious.
Yeah, people are going to be suspicious of Kipyegon. That's just the nature of us performance. Any fan of anyone, right. Anytime anyone runs super fast, there is going to be a pocket of the internet, a pocket of our fan base who is going to be suspicious of the performance. But you didn't get any of that from the athletes. I feel like this is a record compared to the last few record holders that people could actually have some faith in. No pun intended.
I agree. I mean, it's the nature of the sport. When you're describing, I'm like, well, she is beating world records that probably dopers beat. How is that possible? But it's actually the Renata Canova theory, which was mocked on the message board of there's a maximum that a human can get to. And you know, if you're the perfect human being designed by God or whatever you believe in, you know, drugs can probably get you close to that, but so could natural ability as well. But look, I mean, John, if you actually want to talk about the cleanest world record, I mean, this world record might have always been doped back in all the way. I mean, you've got Soviet runners in the 70s. So, I mean, you might be Ann Smith of Great Britain, 4:17, or Maria Gomer's 4:15 in 1967, Paola Pigni of Italy, 4:12. I mean, ever since 1969, we're talking Eastern Europeans or Chinese or Dibaba. But anyways, we can worry about that later. It was just so cool. It was just an amazing run. And the negative split, that's the way she likes to do it. I think it's a little bit, it's kind of, I think physiologically, I mean, John Kellogg had always told me when we were coaching, he's like, oh, you want your first lap to be a little bit faster, but to be pretty damn even the 1500. But the problem with that is it's really hard to find pacing that can pace it that fast that, you know, if you do that. So this is clearly what she likes to do, is sort of build into it. And crazy. I mean, I think it was, you know, maybe they said maybe sub 2 for the last 800. Please,
she was 2.6 for her final 800 meters, 58.9 for her last 200, 29.2 for her last 200. So she closed really, really well. It was a big negative split, and especially, you know, she wasn't chasing anyone. She wasn't even chasing the lights because she was ahead of the lights for most of the last lap.
I'm pleased that we have a large live crowd today on YouTube. People must have been pumped to come to Let's Run. We're going to try to make it his thing. When the meet ends, come to Let's Run. And my favorite YouTuber, Lisa, is there, folks. My fan club member. Rojo is as close to perfect as God has come up with so far.
I'm starting
Speaking
to
of which-
question whether Lisa is actually that person's real first name, Robert, but I'm glad that they're a supporter of the show.
I've got the intern typing under the name Lisa right now. Speaking of which, we have my genetic equal, Weldon Johnson, has joined us. This was such a momentous run. We wanted to get a flash recap up on the homepage. Oh, Weldon doesn't look as excited about this race as me. I think did you not expect it, Weldon, or what? I'm just still on cloud nine.
No, I didn't expect it. Maybe I should have, but I was more focused on the 5K and 100 meters before this. But, John, what did I say to you sort of towards the end of Tuesday's podcast? I said, look what's last in Florence. I'm like, that seems a bit weird. And I was kind of thinking, and then you said it. You said, not if they're going for the 1,500 meter world record. And thankfully they did. Great performance, great crowd. Thankfully she crushed the record because the lights apparently were set slower than the record. And I thought I didn't like the lights until with about 200 meters to go when she just started crushing the light. I mean, it was just a thing of beauty with 200 meters to go. She was flying. You could judge it off of the light. Like, she is God's gift to running. Like, it's, I mean, you guys mentioned the Chinese time. I think I was in college or something when those were set. They seemed fake. And now we have a woman, granted we have super spikes, who look at her competitors. They think she's clean, and she just crushed that record. So,
yeah, I mean, if I don't want to go too deep into like this whole doping arguments, but I'm just going to say Faith Kipyegon has been a phenom essentially from the time she began in the sport. This is a woman who won World Junior Cross twice, as Robert always likes to say. She ran 3:56 10 years ago. So that's when she was 19 years old. And she's essentially been at that level ever since. She's won 4 global titles. I mean, she's been very consistent year in, year out. Took 2018 off to have a baby. She comes back. She's running even faster post baby than before baby, but she does have the super shoes were invented in between. It's an amazing career. And yeah, she's the go to the women's 1500. She was before this race. She still is, but I don't know. I mean, how long do you think this record is going to stand? Well, then 349.1. If you look at the women behind her on the all-time list, there's Debaba, then there's these 4 Chinese women. Really, the next after that, it's Sifan Hassan at 351.95, which is 2.5 seconds. Sorry, more than 2.5 seconds behind what she ran today. I mean, this record could stand for decades.
I mean, the previous ones did. This is so far ahead, right? But you've got Safan, who's a marathoner, John, is pretty close to this record, but that's a joke. I don't want to think about how long it's going to stand. I think women's running, we're sort of seeing it in other events too. The women's steeple now, you're seeing just a lot more depth from the African runners. I guess there isn't the depth here, John, but I think it's on the women's side of things internationally. There wasn't the opportunity for the Kenyan women's really until like this generation, 2009, 10. And I think we're sort of seeing that. So who knows where these things are going to be in 15 years. But yeah, I think this one could last a while.
Yeah, well, it was a joy to watch. Congratulations to Faith Kipyegon. I mean, there were some other runners in this race. Maybe we should discuss them briefly, Weldon. I mean, first of all, if they were going for 204, Sage Herder pretty much nailed that. She ran 204 flat. I know it's slower than record pace, but the lights were also set slower than record pace. So, I mean, look, the main goal for these pacemakers is put her in position to break the world record, and they did that. So I don't know, but it's kind of hard to judge the pacing performance until you know exactly what time they were targeting. But behind her, Laura Muir seconds, 3:57.09. Jessica Hull, Robert was getting mad at her. He's saying, how is she celebrating? She got beat by 7 or 8 seconds. Well, because she broke the Australian record, 3:57.29. And I commend her. She went for it. You know, she was out there. Muir at least has run 3:54 in the past. Hull's previous PB was 3:58, and she was getting out there on low 350s pace. Hangs on for the Australian record, 3:57.29. No one else under 4 minutes. Sierra McGeehan of Ireland, 4th, top American Josette Andrews, 401.39 in 7th place.
John, I was making fun of Hulk, like just joking around, because I saw her finish like live and she smiled. And I thought at the time that she was smiling for Kipyegon. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then I realized, well, she's smiling for the Australian record when I looked at the times. But Hull really deserved that, because just to even try to go out at that pace is insane. And, you know, midway through the race, like the announcers were like, they've got close to 50 meters on the chase back, which was pretty wild to think about. But, you know, for these other runners, you know, I know Sierra Majian's run 356, so I guess she should beat Josette Andrews, who's run 359 before, Corey McGee. But I was really hoping Josette Andrews would sort of make that. It's not a bad race, really, but I was really hoping that she was going to step it up this year to a new level, maybe to that 356 level herself. And I haven't seen it. I mean, she loses to a 356, a 358, and then she loses to Abby Caldwell, who's a 401 woman and ran 401 in this race. So, you know, nothing, I guess I would say a little bit disappointing for me for the two Americans.
Well, Andrews ran 4 flat last weekend in LA and 401 here. So it's consistent. That's a decent level. But yeah, like you said, if she wants to make the world, I mean, she was 3rd in the Diamond League final 2 years ago. So in terms of how close she is to the best of the world, probably further away at this point than she was last year, or than she was in 2021.
There was a funny comment on Rose on the YouTube comments from Rose Runner saying this race makes Bobby Kersey look like an idiot, because remember Bobby Kersey says he thinks I Think Mo can win the 1500 gold medal. Well, he better, you know, not unless Faith Kipyegon gets pregnant or, God forbid, in some sort of accident. But this was just unreal. And the question I would like to have now is, I'm not sure if someone meant this in the comment, but I was spurred by a comment I saw. Is Faith Kipyegon the greatest 1500 arena runner ever, period, male or female? I mean, clearly she wouldn't beat men in a race, but if you stack up her resume, is it better than, say, the greatest man's resume in history? I know Seb Coe is the only male to have won 2 Olympic 1500 meter titles, but that might be an interesting article later for the summer, like ranking the greatest 1500 meter careers in history. Hers certainly has to be up there. I obviously haven't had the time to do the research in the last 20 minutes, but off the top of your head, John.
Well, off the top of my head, I mean, the problem is, like, so many of these women's times, like, she has a high volume of the top women's times ever, but also they're interspersed with all these doping times. Like, if you take out the Chinese women, she's got probably 4 or 5 of the top. I mean, if you keep them in, she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She has 7 of the top 14 performances belong to her. And there are 4 Chinese times in there. Like, she basically would have most of the top 10 if you remove out the dope times. On the men's side, El Garouge has 5 global titles, 1 Olympic gold, 4 world titles versus 2 and 2 for Kipyegon. So she's trailing him by 1 there. He still has the 1500 mile world records. He has a high volume of fast times. So be an interesting argument. We can get into that next week, but certainly it's something worth discussing.
You don't think we need to settle a theoretical debate, men versus women, right after this run? But Robert mentioned this earlier. I loved how everyone came around and congratulated her. I don't really remember too much about Dibaba's records, but this was just a great moment for the sport, a great night for the sport, a great run, obviously, for Faith Kipyegon. I mean, it's just crazy if you think about it, how much quicker she is. I mean, you're like a 355 woman, you're 6 seconds back of this. And I think the medalists are all at 355 or better.
I know, 3-4. I mean, she's like a 359, 1500 woman is pretty good, right? And she's 10 seconds better than that. It's just crazy. Like, there's a bigger gap between her and everyone else in the women's side than there is. The men's side, Jakob is a second or 2 ahead, and we think, oh wow, he's not even a second in Rabat, and we're like, yeah, he's definitely the guy. Kipyegon, some of these women aren't even in the same ballpark as her.
Well, Robert's muted here.
Can I turn to the men's 5,000 meters? Do I have permission to do that?
Go ahead. It's your show, Robert.
So we were pretty pumped about this race coming in, and they start off within 600 meters. They're single file, and they said the pacing was going to be 12 for 12:50. And I'll discriminate against my own race. I see a couple white guys up there, and I'm like, are they going to be able to do this? And then they get behind the lights. But
Robert, why do you have to bring race into this all the time? The current world champion is a white guy from Norway. Like, what does it matter?
Okay, I want this race. I'm very excited about the race. I want it rabbited fast, and I'm worried that they're not going to be able to do it properly. And it's hard to say what happened because I'm obviously not in Florence, and they kept showing like the early rounds of the high jump, which I did not need to see. But anyways, they go out in 2:35, then it slows a little bit, 5:11, and then the laps are popping up on the screen. For the 8th lap, I see a 65, and Luis Grijalva, former NAU runner of Guatemala, is up there. And I'm like, man, that's crazy slow. But this race had everyone in it, except for the Kipyegon Benson, the world champion. I mean, was there a single person who might medal who wasn't in this race besides Ingebrigtsen? Like, was there some Ethiopians I don't know about, John? Anyone that broke 13 last year? I mean, I guess there's got to be a few people. But,
well, if Goma's thinking about doing the 5K, you could count him.
Okay. But this race had everyone. It slows down. But I'm like, okay, this is good, actually. We're always complaining about the time. We're going to see, like, these guys race it out. They don't get a lot of practice in this. Like, tactics, Fisher can work on his kick. You want to be in the right spot. And I see him come through, though, with, like, 3 laps to go. And I'm like, holy crap, they're still going to break 13. I mean, these guys will easily close in under 3. And, well, not only did the leaders break 13, we had 13 different men break 13 minutes in this race. Leading the way, Mohamed Katir of Spain, 12:52.09, just edges Yomif Kejelcha. Like, when it was going slow in the 65, I thought, can you imagine if Ingebrigtsen's in this race? The runners would be committing suicide by letting it slow down like this. It's going to play into the 1,500 meter champion's hands. And I did think at this point Kejelcha was in the back. I'm like, well, Kejelcha is the world record holder in the indoor mile. Shouldn't he do pretty well if this race slows down? He's always the one pushing the pace in these races. I'm like, this might actually be smart. Just sit and kick. And it was a great battle. Katir's obviously got great 1,500 meter speed. They were clear of everybody else. 12:52.09, 12:52.12. But coming up for third, there was a large pack of people. Joshua Cheptegei, the Olympic champion and world record holder, was in there. Telahun Bakile. But who finishes third? Someone based in the United States. Someone that we'd love to see win a medal, but it's not Grant Fisher. It's not Joe Clucker. It's not Woody Kincaid. It's Luis Grijalva. And I think this race, it stunned me live, and it shouldn't. He was 4th at Worlds last year, but this proved that wasn't a fluke. I don't know how you can fluke your way to 4th at Worlds, but what a race for him. I mean, 12:52.97. He took almost 10 full seconds off his PB, and he wasn't even going all out. But not only did he run 9.97 seconds faster than he ever had before, he was confident. Like, when the rabbit stopped and he was in the lead, he just like, fine, I'll run a little bit slower. You guys can, and just was there. And I've just pulled up the flash quotes, guys, and it's unreal what he said. I am not surprised at all by this national record. I am training my fitness like hell, and I have got super shoes. Now I want to try to win in Oslo and get a medal in the World Championships. Oh, I thought he said gold medal. But to me, well, first of all, Joe Biden, if you want to be reelected, I'll vote for you if you can get this guy citizenship. Does he want U.S. citizenship? Give it to him. But it actually might be kind of cool. It's a lot easier if he keeps his citizenship because he doesn't have to try out for the teams. But it's just a cool run. And to me, it does show you that there's probably a lot of talent out in the world, maybe a whole continent's worth of talent that has not been discovered because it's not safe to train or the finances don't work to train or whatever, because Guatemala has not exactly been known for its distance running, but this guy's the real deal.
Yeah, Grijalva was great, no doubt. I think one of the reasons he was able to finish so highly in this race is he was on the inside. He had great positioning. I thought his tactics were very good for this race. If you look at Grijalva, it's actually a miracle this guy got second because he ran almost all of the final kilometer in lane 2. It's actually staggering. I went back and watched all the replays. Only on the last turn is he in lane 1, and even then he's on Katir's shoulder. Like the amount of extra distance he ran and the fact that he was still able to pass people and get up for second, he might be the fittest guy in this field right now. But I think, to me, I don't think there's a tremendous difference between maybe the top 8 or 9 guys in this race. I think it just came down to who was in good position to kick and kind of who had it this last lap. I mean, I think you shake this up a month from now, could be totally different.
I don't want to hear any crap about who was in good position to kick. Like,
yeah, because that doesn't matter in a tactical race. And yes, this was a tactical race, even though the winning time was 12:52. Come on, Robert.
No.
Look at Kincaid. Kincaid closed basically as well as Katir and Grijalva and was nowhere to be seen because he was in 15th at the bell. Positioning matters a ton.
No. John's, folks, you guys, what he's saying is like, I can't let a falsehood be said on this thing. Like, this wasn't about positioning to kick. Barrega was in a perfect position to kick. The Olympic 10,000 meter champion was in the lead in the front and got destroyed in this race. Like,
well, because he didn't have a kick.
Right.
I mean, you need to have it as well. But like, do you think that Luis Grijalva, did he really close all that much faster than these other guys? No, he ran way less distance than Cheptegei. They ran basically, I bet they're at very similar fitness levels, but there's a reason why Grijalva got third, and it's because he didn't have to run in lane 2 or lane 3 the last 2 times.
Yeah, he ran much smarter than these other guys by staying in on the rail. These other guys are trying to win the race. There's a difference when you're trying to win the race or if you're happy with the third place finish. So I agree with that. Some of these guys are running a lot of extra distance because it's still a pretty fast race, and they're running out in lane 2 and 3. And I was thinking, particularly with Grijalva, like, dude, you're giving up, like, how many meters is it per lap? Like 6, 7, 8 meters, something like that. Like, that's going to catch up to you. So I agree with that. That's stupid. But I don't know. Like, I was like, oh, I better not hear some excuse from Grant Fisher about how he was too far back at the bow or et cetera. So there was really no excuses. This was a big pack of people, and those that had it at the end did well, and those that didn't do so well. So for some reason, it's not letting me pull up the results. Could someone read through the other results, Weldon, with the Americans, please?
Yeah, we got Cheptegei 4th, 12:53. Telehun Bekele 5th, 12:54. Woody Kincaid 6th, 12:54. Again, he was 15th at the bell. He passed 9 guys on the last lap. Like, he was dropped. There was a huge pack, and he still wasn't part of it. Joe Klecker 7th, 12:55. Jacob Kropp 8th, 12:55. We'll skip a couple. And then, Barrega 9th, Mohamed 10th, Grant Fisher 11th, 12:56, 99. Robert, this race, I feel like it was bad news for Grant Fisher.
Well, that's what you texted me mid-race, but it's a loaded race. And when I said, like, when I'm finished, the first thing I typed on the message board is, what a time we live in. An American runs 12:56 in a Diamond League, and I view it as a disaster. But 11th place. But this just shows you how hard it is to medal. Fisher was 1 spot behind Mo Ahmed, 2 spots behind the Olympic 10,000 champion Selwyn Barrega, Jacob Kropp. All these guys are losing to 2 Americans, Woody Kincaid and Joe Klecker. Aragawi, I guess the good news is Fisher did beat Aragawi. He beat Samuel Teferi. He beat Nicholas Camelli. So, but it's just, there's so many good guys, and I would have never thought that I would see a race though where Grant Fisher, we want him to medal this year, and he's the fourth guy from North America in this race today. Now, Bauman's known for keeping the training blocks up high, so maybe they're, training through this because Ahmed wasn't exactly fantastic in this.
No, this wasn't the result he wanted, I'm sure, but 12:56. I'm not totally panicking, but I think this changes what we thought going in was Fisher is on a different level than Kincaid or Klecker. At least he was last year. If you look at USA's in the 5K, I know he got beaten the 10K, but he probably shouldn't have. And Worlds in the 5K and 10K. Like, clearly he was fitter and better than those guys. And doesn't look like it either anymore. Unless something was up with Fisher, it looks like Kincaid and Klecker are about the same fitness level. And there's still room for things to change. Like I said, I don't think these results sort of set in stone as the pecking order for the rest of the year. But I think we're going to have a hell of a race at USA's in the 5K if these guys are all in there, plus Noor and Shalimo, because they're all in sub-13 shape right now.
It's going to be amazing, and someone's not going to make it. And, that was one thing that was interesting. It's not set in stone. We don't want to overreact because God, I'm just having trouble with their website. But did you see what Joshua Cheptegei had to say after this race?
No, please tell us.
For some reason, the flash quotes are only showing me Ferdinand Magnala.
Okay, then we don't need to cover that, Robert.
Well, I can summarize it if you guys can pull up the direct quote. But the quote was, this is the Olympic champion and world record holder, basically saying, I'm quite happy to finish fourth. This was a good practice for me. It was a tactical race. I have really good endurance. I need to work on my speed. So he was fine with finishing fourth. And he said, last year at this race, I finished sixth. So, I think this race was the perfect race for what the 5,000 is. In your preview, John, you said there was 8, I don't know, maybe I'm making this up. Let's say there's 8 5,000s on the circuit last year, and we had 7 different winners last year. There's so many good guys. They're all basically the same ability. It's very hard to think that someone would dominate this event, except for the guy that I view as unstoppable in a championship 1500. If he's got good positioning, and that would be Jakob Ingebrigtsen. So it's just.
Oh wait, I thought positioning didn't matter.
It does matter, but I don't think that's why Fisher didn't do well. I didn't notice anything bad about his. We know, was Fisher moving up or running wide? I didn't.
Fisher was kind of boxed in the whole way. I mean, he wasn't running extra distance, but I don't think he had really that much room to move. What I would say though, the one thing, positioning mattered a lot for Woody Kincaid, and we've said this. Has he changed his ways from his last couple of years? He would show up to these Diamond Leagues or USAs or Worlds, and he'd always close well, but he wouldn't be in position to do something. And I think he's got a medal-winning kick. And if you look at this race, he was closing as quickly as anyone, and it was a very quick race. The problem was that 63rd to last lap and that 59-second to last lap, he got dropped from the pack. That's what Worlds is going to be like. We know with Jakob Ingebrigtsen, it might be even faster. Ingebrigtsen might want to go 59, 58 for the 2 laps before the bell. He likes to stretch it out from a ways away. Woody couldn't handle that. He wound up getting dropped, and he closed really well, but he still wound up 6th. And if he runs, I think it's good that he's getting experience in this kind of race. I think it's the same thing for Fisher and Klecker. But Kincaid really needs to either get strong enough to hang there or to focus on mentally not letting the pack get away, because if he can do that, and if he's there at the bell, I think he has a good chance to medal this summer.
So I think it's just a mental problem, John. This is how he runs. I mean, I don't know if you can just send him to a sports psychologist, because this one was interesting. He was up there very aggressive early, and then he just started falling back. And we put up the screenshot here a couple of times. He was, I mean, it was shocking at the bell. Here, I'll put it up again. Here he is, 15th back here, just with a 10-meter gap to 13. and he kicks down 6 of those guys. His kick on the last lap, I thought maybe this one he wasn't going to have it because he'd fallen off the pace. He's one of the few guys to fall off the pace.
Right. No, back in the day, you would have been irate. If this was like a high school race, you're like, what a JV guy, like kick it in and kick down your teammates. You know, it's like the guy who doesn't run a good race and then can beat some people, but he beat basically half the field. And I timed it. For some reason, they don't have each individual runner's individual lap splits, but he was like 54.5. Like his split was almost exactly the same as the winner of the race. Like one of them was like 1 or 2 tenths faster. We'd have to time it again to get the official splits, but very similar to the winner of the race. You'd think it was faster because he goes from 15th to whatever he was, 6th. But before this race, when I thought about it, like early on, like in the week, I thought his kick is so nasty. If he could somehow stay there, could he possibly win one of these races? But the problem is he can't stay there. And I'm stunned because he was out so hard and aggressive, and then the pace slows down in the middle. And I'm like, okay, this is perfect for Woody. But Woody was somehow like just off the back. Like I'm surprised he even had the guts to kick at the end. But it brings it up at USA. It's like if this guy's within 20 meters of third, you know that he's going to believe that he can run it down. Like most people get gapped, it's over. Woody, I think, knows it's not over.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's mental, Robert, but it's just we don't see this with other athletes. Most other athletes, if they get dropped, they're not still able to produce one of the best kicks in the field. They're either they're at the bell and they're kicking well, or they get dropped and they're kind of done. Whereas he can be hurting and still produce this crazy kick even after getting dropped. We're not used to seeing that in these races. But obviously, like 59, those last couple laps, there is a reason why those races in the past would drop people, because it's hard to hold on to that pace.
I mean, this to me shows he can do it off of any type of race. Like that kick somehow is always there. You figure at some point you're just cooked, but he isn't. And I think we may have some Luis Grijalva audio here. We'll see if this works.
I just trusted Mike Smith, my coach, and I knew I felt very confident in the place. I knew I was in shape, and I knew my training could tell that I could do something crazy like that. But to be honest, you got to do it first, right? You know, anybody could train anybody could be a workout hero, you know. But I just felt confident, man. That race felt like a championship race, and you ran 12:52. So that's pretty exciting that it felt like that.
Talking about the field there, it's just Olympic style there, in that very, very strong field. You were top 3. How does this change your goals now for the future?
Yeah, like last year, you know, I got 4th in the world, and it wasn't a one-hit wonder, you know. I wanted to prove myself that, you know, in a tactical race, I know how to race just from being in the collegiate system, but also that I can also time trial in a way. I mean, 12:52 felt like a championship race, but I just trusted myself and believed myself that 4th place last year wasn't a fluke, and I knew I belonged there with the big dogs, and I'm not afraid to run with the best, and I'm really happy that I just felt so amazing in that race, and you know, trust the coach, so he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, trust the coach is right. It's interesting though, because you know who he trains with now, guys.
Woody Kincaid, look at the results. 3rd and 6th, Kincaid and Grijalva, both from Mike Smith's not a pro group. He doesn't want to call it a pro team, but they are a pro group and really, really good. Then 7th place, Joe Klecker on Athletics Club. And then bringing up the rear, 10th and 11th, Mohamed and Grant Fisher from the Bauman Track Club. So interesting there. The 3 US-based groups that we got to, you know, Mike Smith Elite claims this one, huh?
Very interesting with the Bowerman guys and the changes of Bowerman. I mean, I don't think Jerry Schumacher became a bad coach overnight, but guys are probably thinking, you know, about options or it's interesting. It's way too early to write off Bowerman. The only thing this race does for me, and that is we all talked about it. We all had Grant Fisher on the team for USA's. I'm still putting him on the US team, but now there's a lot more doubt for me because you also have Abdihamid Muir, who wasn't in this race. So we kind of had like we had 5 guys, John. I thought
5 because you got Chalimo as well.
Oh, and Paul Chalimo wasn't here as well. I mean, the US 1500 meter ranks are so good right now. It's amazing. But the cool thing, Luis Grijalva is such a cool story. I mean, this guy at the Olympics, it was just, he was the dreamer. This is cool. This guy who's like, not allowed to leave the United States without special permission, made the Olympics. I love his attitude, John. He had this look on his face afterwards. He kind of like looked around like, did I just do that? But he's a big dog now. I mean, there is no question. He's better than all these Americans. I mean, you got to start putting him in there. Like this one, he kicked. This was a quicker race. But the one thing I did note, even though this ended up being a 12:52 race, the way it slowed down in the pace with 15 guys, this is the new championship style racing.
Yes.
12:52 is not what it used to be, what it once was.
100%.
12:52 was the old 13:10 race. 13:05 race, whatever that,
Yeah.
This is the new ball game. Get on board.
And the one thing I will add about this, not reading too much into it, it's June 2nd. The World Championships are at the end of August. There is a lot of time for things to change, for people to get injured, for, the shape you're in now is not the shape you're going to be in August. So I'm not trying to make any profound judgments about the event. No one came out and totally dominated everyone in this race. But with where the things stand now, especially USA's, they asked, with now a month away from USA's, and that is going to be a war to get on that 5K team.
There's a great quote, great comment from C.S. Martin on the YouTube. He's like, Grijalva finally has a super spike. Apparently Hoka. I do think those Hoka athletes were at a big disadvantage until this year. They've now got a super shoe and a super spike, apparently. So if you're getting fourth in the worlds without that, it's pretty wild. And, it's just crazy that the 12:52 can be a tactical race, or that you can run 12:56 as an American and we're not happy about it. So, yep, I guess the flash quotes are not working anymore. Was there anything else in this race? There was a women's steeplechase. Do we need to talk about that?
I think we do, because some things changed in this women's steeplechase as well. A couple of the questions I had going in, were we going to see any improvement from Emma Coburn? And technically we did. She ran 9:18 in this race versus 9:29 in Doha. But she fell again. This one, I don't know, it was so early in the race. She was on her water jump just before 1K. She planted her right foot, but it slipped on the barrier and she ended up falling. I don't know if it was, normally you're not that tired at that point in the race. So I don't know if it was extra slippery or what, but that's what happened. She goes down, she gets up very quickly, and she was in pretty good position, from running pretty well in that sort of towards the front of the second group for a good chunk of the race, but she really fell apart the last kilometer or so and got passed by a lot of people. It is an improvement in terms of time, but she was well off the win, which went to Sembo Almeu of Ethiopia, only 18 years old. Another personal best for her, 9 flat. Looked very, very good at the end of this one. And the other result worth noting here, I think, is Courtney Wayment of the U.S. She was beaten in her season opener by Chrissy Gear at Trackfest a few weeks ago. We thought, that's kind of odd. Like Wayment, she made the world's team last year. She was kind of a cut above most of these other women, apart from Ferrix and Coburn. Well, she responded big time. She ran 9:11, season's best, the fastest time in the U.S. this year by more than 10 seconds. So that was a very good run for Courtney Wayment. Still not a great run for Emma Coburn, but it was better than her last steeple.
Look, when I look at these results, I think we have a changing of the guard up front. I mean, an 18-year-old gets first, a 19-year-old gets second, 20-year-old gets third. Plus, we've got another world junior champion that didn't run this race that was third in Doha, who beat the winner of this race at World Juniors last year. So I think it's very possible we could have a teenage world champion. After I didn't even notice Wayman in the race. Afterwards, people say, she ran 9:11, her second fastest time ever, which was a big step up from 9:24. So they're like, okay, she's probably the favorite for the U.S. team. And I'm not writing Coburn off though, because I looked at the splits afterwards. Coburn was ahead of Wayman despite falling the entire race until the last lap. And Wayman had a good last lap. Coburn ran a 77. So it's another race where Coburn falls. I do think that takes something out of you. She's won 8 straight U.S. titles. I'm certainly not ruling out 9 because of this, because I think she's close to Wayman. I mean, I don't think any of these women are in. There's been no indication that, if Wayman ran 9:24 and got beat in her first race, there's no reason to think she's in 9:05 shape. 9:11 was pretty damn good for her in this race. And Coburn, 9:18 with a fall, that's got to be worth at least a 9:15, right? So she's gotten it done a lot of USAs, but it makes it very interesting to see if she can get that 9th in a row.
Well, you're sort of underselling it there because it would be a 9th in a row, but she's never lost at USAs. She did not run in 2013 because she was hurt, but she also won in 2011 and 2012. So she's 10-0 in the steeple at USA Outdoor Championships. Yeah, I'm not betting against her making the team, but this is usually in the women's steeple, it's like 3, maybe 4 women who are kind of battling it out for those spots on the team. We kind of know where they're going to go. This year, 1 month out from USA's, who knows? Courtney Frerichs hasn't run a steeple yet this year. Courtney Wayman just ran. She sent a message, but we've got Maddie Borman, we've got Chrissy Gear, we've got Emma Coburn. A lot of women could be in this mix if it's going to be taking a time in the mid-19s to make it, as opposed to years before you would need to be closer to 9:10.
But John, 9:18 is a bad race for Coburn, even with a fall, and not many American women can do that.
That's right. Yeah. Borman and Gia both ran 9:22. So I would have to think Emma Coburn's going to run. She's going to be in better shape by USA's, and it's can those other women kind of get down there and match it.
Okay, cool story if Emma wins 10 USAs in a row. But I want her competing at the world level. And I think we're seeing a changing on the guard. It's getting much more competitive. You shouldn't write someone off because of one race. Okay, she fell in the first race, and then she fell in this one. This fall was much less severe than the other fall. She more like lost a couple steps. So I'm not giving her a pass on this one. But she's still the favorite to win USAs. But getting to this world level, that's a whole different ball game. I mean, Omayu, I think she was second at World Under 20s last year. Winfred Yavi, though, I mean, if you want to look for an encouraging sign, Winfred Yavi won in Doha, right? She's 0.05 of a second in front of Emma. So you clearly can have a bad race.
But this wasn't a bad race, though. It was a bad race for Yavi. It wasn't, Coburn, it's more of a pattern. She has it, like, in the past, she could get to, she'd run around 9:10 during the regular season, and then she'd get to the low 9 flats at the championships, and that will put her on the podium. The last couple of years, she hasn't been running quite as fast as consistently on the Diamond League circuit. And then the World Championship final, the Olympic final, she's had poor races. So, I do think things are changing for her the last couple of years.
Agreed. I'm not trying to say it's one race, but one data point's okay. Like no one's, I don't think, worried about Barrega too much, or Cheptegei got 4th, but like, okay. But Emma Coburn, I hate to use the name Evan Jager. I still keep holding out hope for him, but
Evan Jager, who was 6th place in the world last year, Weldon?
His situation was a little bit different, John, where he had the injury. There haven't been real serious injuries for Emma, but just starting to think the best may be in the rearview mirror. And maybe super spikes are also obscuring some of that too, right? That's the other thing. I don't think 9 flat's going to be what it once was once this season comes to an end. Although still in the women's steeple, 9 flat is still damn good time.
Well, maybe not, but you've also got a lot of these women who are breaking 9 and getting popped. I mean, Ruth Jabet and now Gerudo, the world champion, they've run 2 of the fastest times ever, and both have been suspended for doping violations. So I think some of those times near the top are a little inflated.
But John, if a woman can run 3:49, I think a woman should be running closer to 8:50 in the steeple. Just to say that much.
Yeah, well, I mean, the world record is by someone who hasn't been part. Beatrice Chepkoech. She's run 8:44. So I do think that's feasible, especially with how young some of these women up front are. I mean, 18, 19, 18. If they're all running 9:04 now, yes, we certainly could see some more sub nines and perhaps well under 9 minutes. The one other thing I will say this: did you guys notice Sembo Elmayu, the winner here? She steps on every barrier. A lot of people do it on the water jump so they can land a little farther. She does it on every single one. I can't remember seeing this from an elite steeplechaser. They step on every barrier in the entire race. Did you guys notice that? Have you seen it before from other runners?
I only noticed she did the last barrier. It shows, but I'm typing during the stuff, and when I started doing the last one, I'm like, wow, that looked very smooth. So I definitely did notice she does it all the time. But hey, well, two ways to skin a cat, I guess, is because she looks great. There's a comment here from Daryl Richardson in the comments. Elmayu's going to dominate this event going forward. Maybe, but there's a lot of young talent in this event now. So
I noticed it on the last lap by the 1,500 meter start that she stepped on it because they were talking about how she was running away with the race. I'm like, wait, why is she stepping on the barrier if she's running with the race? Now, have I seen people step on them? Yeah, when I was coaching, I did. Actually, I wish when John Kellogg comes out of the bathroom, I have to ask him. I think Brad Baird, former Ivy League champion of mine, stepped on the barriers every time. I didn't. If he did, I didn't coach him to do that. That's just kind of the natural. He just kind of wasn't a great hurdler, and he just felt more comfortable doing it. So, anyways, all right. Let's talk about. There was no 800. That's it for the distances, right here. No 800s.
Only 3 distance races.
Well,
but real quick, I have a solution.
I don't need 5. I just need 2 fantastic ones, and we got it. And I don't need a million events either. In terms of the sprints, the women's 100 was god awful. One woman breaks 11 seconds. Talu wins it, but 1094, 1097 easily. But I don't know. I guess the men's 100 wasn't super fast either. How many guys broke 10, John?
1. It was just like what we saw in Rabat last weekend, which was the temperatures were kind of cool. It was in the 60s. You would have liked to see it 10 or 15 degrees warmer for those sprinters, but it's still weird to me. This was an elite field. It had 3 of it had the podium from last year's World Championships: Fred Kerley, Trayvon Bromell, and Marvin Bracey. Bracey just ran 9:93 in France a couple days ago. He shows up, gets dead last in 10:23. Kerley's the only one under 10. He wins it comfortably in the end. I thought Omanyala was going to get him for a minute, but maybe it was just the angle. It's kind of a low angle they were showing us. Omanyala was second, 10:05, but Kerley was the convincing winner, 9:94. 0 wind. Yeah, it's weird to me these 200s the last 2 weeks haven't gone gone faster. The women's one, that field just wasn't good. I mean, it was Talu and Dina Asher-Smith, and then Dina Asher-Smith withdraws right before the race. So I didn't expect very fast times because the field wasn't quality. This was a quality 100 field, and Kerley was the only one who was really able to get anything fast.
I still enjoy it because I enjoy the drama of the 100. I enjoy Kerley. He's like the modern Bolt in the sense of he's a big dude. You think, okay, he's faster than these guys because he's bigger than them. And he got the job done. You had a really high quality field. I know the times weren't good. I think that a lot of it had to do with the conditions. And the same thing to the men's 200. We got to see the 200-meter debut, seasonal debut for Arian Knighton. Remember last year he was running 19.4 by now. And he dominated this field. He wins in 19.89, wins by 0.39, beating Jareem Richards, who's a 19.80 guy, by almost 0.4 of a second. Feinbull only ran 20.51. So the times weren't great, but I mean, 80 meters into that 200, I'm like, no, Knighton looks like a different animal than everybody else in this race. Like he's just way, way better. Now, do I think this is going to scare Noah Lyles? No, he's got supreme confidence as he should. But I thought, you know what? This was good for Knighton. Dominant win, but he could be building. Maybe he's smarter about building this year towards He wants to peak in August. He doesn't want to peak in June.
That's what I was wondering. Because last year he peaked in April. He ran 1949 on April 30th and never ran faster. And he's still good enough to medal at Worlds, but he was getting slower. He was slower at USA's than he was at LSU in April, and then he was slower at Worlds than he was at USA's, whereas Noah Lyles ran fast, but his fastest time of the whole season was the World Championship final, exactly when he needed it to. So, yeah, I am curious if they're taking that approach with Knighton, but I was very encouraged by what I saw today. Midway through that turn, he just had a burst and was, from that moment on, like, oh, this race is over. He was, like you said, Robert, just so clearly better than everyone else. That home straight was no competition at all. 1989, on a time when no one's really running very fast at this meet, I thought it's an encouraging performance. He's in a good spot, but the real test is going to be at USA's and Worlds, and probably not even at USA's, because I'm guessing Lyles will just do the 100 there since he has to buy in the 200.
Well, that's good for US fans. The fact, Knighton will have to run USA's, so we'll get to see that, because he just looks so pretty running the 200. Fred Kerley's beating all these guys in the 100, but he doesn't look like Bolt. He's bigger than Bolt. Bolt was smoother, and I guess also Bolt right now is 0.2 of a second faster. So he's getting the results, but today's run in the 100, there was a little bit of disappointment. I mean, he pretty much raced these same guys a week ago or 5 days ago, right? 6 days ago, and was gesturing to the crowd, pointing that I'm the guy. And here he kind of shook his head. He wanted a time. You could tell he wanted a quicker time today. But guys, back to the distances real quick. This commenter, I think it's maybe supposed to be Mad Dog 0908. Kincaid is like Jordy Beamish. They both have the same running style. So they're from different groups. We need a sports psychologist, John, if it's mental, to get them together. I think it might be some physical thing, though. Either way, somebody figure this out. You'll be famous. On will hire you, and Nike will hire you. So somebody email us, podcast@letsrun.com. If you get any ideas to fix this issue of dropping like 30 meters off the pace, then kicking like a mad dog the final 400, and usually coming up just a little bit short. Or, if it's a B race, yeah, you win it.
Oh, I feel like Beamish usually wins those races when he's in them. I don't know if it's, there are races where I do think Beamish is falling asleep, but I think for for both those guys, I don't think it's mental. I just think their strength is very clearly their kick, and their weakness is at times getting in position to use that kick, or being strong enough to hold on, to put in, to make sure that you're close enough to the race to use it. It might just be that these guys, they can kick off pretty much anything, but they don't have quite the endurance. Like, they can unleash it, but they might not have quite the endurance to get high enough in the field at the bell. I don't know. I can't think of, both of them are well aware of this, though. I can't think it's really that mental.
Okay, guys, anything else that stands out from Florence? This is our second podcast of the week. We did have 4 high schoolers break 4 in the mile in the U.S. yesterday, but that's sort of becoming common these days. I forgot how many I said were going to happen by the end of this year, John, and you shot me down last year, and I think we're getting close.
I think you said 10, and I still don't think we're anywhere close to 10.
10 a year? We just said 4.
We had 4, and has anyone else who wasn't in that race also broken it?
Burns, we got 5 for the year, I think.
So we got 5, and it's June. We might have a few more of these races. I don't know. That race was interesting. I thought it was going to be a high school record attempt, though. And Eric Sawinski wasn't running high school record pace, and I think it's because... Was this just Connor Burns because he fell off the pace? He wasn't ready to go for it, and that's why they didn't run. Like, I'm not saying 3:57 and 4 guys sub 4 is a disappointment, but they were not on high school record pace at any point in this race. And why do you think that is, Robert?
What do you mean? I think they were following the kid. I think Sawinski was smart and wanted to go a long way and see how far they could go. If they were right on him, he would have picked it up.
Right.
He basically was running. Didn't he run the first lap in basically 58 and then run 60s kind of the rest of the way? But he made it almost 1,200 meters. So I think they were going for the Kipyegon approach. Like it's better to have him go a little bit slow than if they can slam the last lap. You know, Nick Willis says if you got a 54 in you, you can run a pretty good time. Now, look, I thought I watched the race live, and this gets into the debate. I mean, the intern was saying, "Oh, why didn't Kipyegon talk up this race?" She said she just wanted to run fast at 3:51. Was interested in 3:50. Why didn't she type it up as a world record attempt? I mean, the only reason why I got really excited about this race was because Sage Herder-Clucker said she was rabbiting a world record attempt. So it's in the debate of, do you like to talk big, or then you talk it up as a world record and you don't get it and people are disappointed. So it's kind of interesting. I like the fact that these high schoolers talked it up, and he said he was going to go with the rabbit. He did. Maybe they were a little bit behind world record pace, but it made me watch. But it's like,
wait, did Robert really like it, John? Because I'm pretty sure he put up the poll. Are they going to break the record? Yes, no, or hell no?
You can still like the talk, but then the rational part of your brain says, are any of these guys running 3:53? And I think we all agreed that they won't.
And I 100% will admit that John's the pure journalist. I'm pseudo journalist, mainly fan. Did I want them to break 3:53? Absolutely not. And I didn't even start that thread said, LOL, these guys talking about breaking 3:53. It makes you appreciate Alan Webb and how great he was without the super shoes. Now, a lot of people on here are saying, this is a great day for Mike Smith, and he's been proven to be the best coach in America. And he's better than Ritzenheim. He's better than Jerry Schumacher. When I look at these results, though, since I'm good at being the contrarian, I'm like, man, Mike Smith, how bad of a job did he do with Grijalva in college? Grijalva was getting like 54th at NCAA cross country, like never won an NCAA title. Like, dude, like what was going on there, man? You had a world beater on your team.
Well, he got 54th. Obviously, that's just a bad race. I don't know how much you can chalk that out to Mike Smith, but yeah, it is interesting. He never won an NCAA individual title. He ran great his senior year, and he lost to Coupeteer, who was really good. But I don't know. He left some room for improvement. I am trying to think of someone, like, if he medals this year, though, how many guys who were in the NCAA won a medal, not winning an NCAA title? I'm trying to think. It might be longer than I think. Paul Chelimo never won an NCAA title, and he's won a bunch of medals.
But Paul Chelimo didn't run his outdoor year. Didn't he get kicked off the team or quit? So Grijalva was 9th his senior year in cross, 52nd, not 54th in 2019. 15th in the track in 2019. I guess he was young in 2019.
And he missed a season, COVID in 2020. He wasn't able to, there was no indoor or outdoor championships that year.
And this might be a good result for Coupeteer in the sense of Jerry's trying to move him to the 5. Cooper wants to run the 15. Maybe he says, hey, man, I used to beat that guy. Maybe I should run the 5. So, but I also think Worlds is a different dynamic. Does one of these countries just come up with a suicide plan of like push the pace, push. And the problem is, I just don't think anyone's good enough to do it. You're going to really have to have someone sacrifice themselves. And then even when they stop at like 3,500, who's going to push the pace? You'd have to have the one country like push it. Then other countries can just sit on you. Pretty interesting. Oh, John Mohamed was another guy that.
Yeah, there's probably a bunch I'm not thinking of. All right, this Florence meet, Grant Holloway won the 110 hurdles, Robert. Do you think you still think he should abandon his coach? I mean, 13:04. He got out hard, and this time he held on and won. Or was it just a matter of this field wasn't as good? There was no broad bell to run him down.
I was pleased that he won. I didn't notice the fade. It looked close to me the whole way. Did you notice the fade, John? Like he didn't have a big margin of victory. It seemed kind of like he was pretty close the whole way.
He was not as strong over the last few hurdles as the runner-up, Jason Joseph. He closed the gap, but he held on well. You mean 13:04? You run 13:04, you're not going to lose many races. He ran 13:12 in Rabat. Granted, that was a little bit bigger wind.
but my take on it was I thought it was closer than that. Like, how much did he end up winning by?
0.06.
He's got a big lean. Like, it looked pretty close to me. Like, oh God, did he lose? And then he wins by 0.06. But my concern with Grant is I thought that, was it Hutchings or who was the other announcer?
Steve Cram.
One of them pointed out, like, this guy's only broken 13 flat 4 times in his life. And I know there's not a lot of people who've done it a whole lot more than that, but he's run 1281. So, like, yeah, the 13-0 race is generally going to win. And that's a lot of times what he does. He goes even in the Olympics. Didn't he run like 13-0 in the prelim and then run 13-0 high and lose the final? That's good, but I really think to be unbeatable, he needs to be running the 12.9s more consistently.
Yeah, unbeatable is a pretty high standard, though. It's very hard to get there. This guy's won the two biggest races, he won the two biggest races of 2022. He got beat in the Olympics, but he's the most consistent guy in this event, but he has to be at his absolute best to be unbeatable. It's a really high standard for anyone.
Anyways,
one other thing we haven't discussed is Marie-Jose Toulouse. Sure got healthy quick, John.
Okay, about that. Maybe I should be accused of burying the lead, but I talked to Otto Bolden yesterday. I'm working on another story, but he was at the LA meet calling it for NBC. And so I had to ask him, like, what happened with that race? Like, what was there anything weird behind the scenes? His take on it was legit. That all three of them actually were injured. Hobbs has been dealing with a knee issue apparently, and that Talu and Richardson were both cramping. And the reason he explained it to me was at UCLA, the area where the sprinters were warming up was very soft. And he said in his experience, he's a multi-time medalist, former world champion in the sprints. If you're on a really soft turf like that or a soft track, it can lead to cramping. And also he's a UCLA alum. So, he's familiar with the facility there. That was his explanation to me was the surface was prone to getting cramps. Some of the best athletes, unfortunately, cramped up and pulled out of the race. I'll defer to Ado because he knows more about sprinting than I do for sure. So if he says that it was legit, I tend to believe him.
Yeah, I guess what it just shows the regular season means nothing. But also it's a bad look. Bad look today as well. Lane 5 is empty. I'm sorry, if a star scratches, somebody should just move on over. You shouldn't have an empty lane in the middle of the track. It looks like amateur hour. Or pull a fan. That's what they should do. I want every lane in the tracks filled. So if somebody pulls out last second, we just pull someone out of the stands and let them run. Man or woman, it can be anyone. We'll show how these women are really good.
That would be kind of interesting. It'd be fun to do. I think they're afraid that the results wouldn't work. Like when the person's false started one of the 200s in lane 2, they didn't move the person out of lane 1. I would like to see that just to, make it more consistent.
Okay, guys. Well, I think that's going to be a wrap for Florence. We do have another meet this weekend, the Portland Track Festival. Apparently, I'm looking at this 1500. Cole Hawker is on the entry list and hasn't withdrawn yet, as it's still 2 days out. He's slated to face Matthew Centuritz. I got an email from the meet promoters today telling me we're getting a rematch of the 2021 Olympic trials between Hawker and Centuritz, and clearly neither of them are quite that version of themselves right now. But if Cole Hawker actually runs this race, I am going to be very interested to see what he does, because this will be his first race since January. Do you think he'll be there, given that he just pulled out of LA last weekend? Or maybe he was saying, all right, I'm not ready to be in a race with Chariot right now, but I am ready to race some Americans. And so he decided he would move to this week and run Portland.
Well, going back to my teammate theory, John, Cole Hawker doesn't want to get beat by Cooper Tier, his former teammate. If he loses to like Centro or something on his way back, he can rationalize that one. But he doesn't want to lose the Tier. I don't know. I think he'll be there at this stage if he's on the entry list. If it wasn't for this Diamond League and all the great action we've been having, people be going nuts on this race. But Hobbs has run so fast. We got guys running 1250s in Diamond Leagues. It's a great matchup. So definitely watch it.
All right, folks. Thank you for being a Supporters Club member. If you're watching live, you should join the Supporters Club. Go to letsrun.com/subscribe today. What a meet. What a world record. John Kellogg's here. I got to go play a game and tell him, guess what happened. And find out.
I don't understand, Robert. John Kellogg is this track guru. He doesn't even watch the meets.
Yeah, I think he wanted to do a bike ride. He got turned off by all the drugs 10 years ago. John, why didn't you watch the meet? You missed a world record today. Iconic. Oh, he had blood work today. All right.
Okay. I can
Bloodwork
understand
at
that.
Let'sRun.com. Secrets have been revealed, people. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Have a good weekend.